Hey everybody, I wanted to just take a minute and talk a little bit about Macbeth and the original version. I realize that probably all of you are reading the excuse me, the modern version in order to kind of get a sense of what the play means. And I mean that's a great idea. It's why I suggested that we use the No Fear version, because my main goal is that you understand the play and kind of the ideas that arise from the play. But at the same time, I do want to acknowledge that it was written particularly well in a style that we're not used to. So I do feel like I want to talk a little bit about Shakespeare's poetry and the way that he writes. So what I want to do is talk, and this will probably be two videos. Um, well, it definitely will be two. It might actually even be three shorter ones. But so what I want to do is I want to look at the speech at the end of Act One, where Macbeth is deciding, he's kind of battling with himself, trying to convince himself to kill Duncan, and then analyze it from a language point of view and look at how Shakespeare gets his meaning across. So I think the first thing, so the part of the speech, and this isn't the whole soliloquy, although it's actually it is the whole soliloquy. No, not quite. It's almost all of the soliloquy. But so I'll read it to you, and then I want to talk about uh, the poetry in this first video. So Lady Macbeth has said, like, we're going to do it. This is what we got to do. And Macbeth's like, let's talk about it later. And she's like, no, 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 we're going to do it. Just leave it to me. It's going to happen. I'll arrange it. I'll organize it. But you're definitely going to kill Duncan and you're going to be the king. So Macbeth is by himself. It's a soliloquy. So he's alone on the stage. Only the audience hears what he's saying. So this is like a voiceover in a movie where the people watching the movie can hear what the person is thinking, but nobody in the screen can hear what they're thinking. So Macbeth says this to himself: "If it were done when it is done, then it were well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be all and end all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed; then, as his host, who should against the murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself." So these are the words. And, I remember the first time that I read Shakespeare thinking, like, I get shutting the door, I get, the odd word here and there, but basically, what is this guy babbling on about? So let me walk through this and kind of show you how to read a passage like this if you didn't have the benefit of no fear. So I'm going to start simply and just talk about the structure. So I'm going to scroll down. I'll publish all this stuff later for you to look at. But so I've taken the first 5 lines here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the poetry. Okay, so if you see up here, up in this part, so Shakespeare wrote in something called Iambic Pentameter, and he didn't use rhyme. Well, he sometimes used rhyme, but mostly it was unrhymed Iambic Pentameter, which has come to be known as blank verse. That's just what they call it. So it's Iambic Pentameter and it's unrhymed. So the words at the ends of the lines don't rhyme with each other. Okay. Occasionally they do, but mostly they don't. So what's Iambic Pentameter? Well, an iambic line has 5 stressed syllables in it. So 5 syllables where there's a strong downbeat. Okay. And that's so the iambic is the stressed beat, and 5 of them in a line is pentameter. Penta meaning 5, as in a pentatonic scale in music, 5-note scale. So the words are arranged in such a way as the stresses fall on significant words. Okay, so they rarely, if ever, fall on a word like the or a or an. Okay, but they can, but they usually don't. They'll fall on words that carry the meaning or the weight of the meaning. Um, and the idea is you read iambic pentameter not in an exaggerated poetry kind of way, otherwise it starts sounding like Dr. Seuss. You read it as if it's natural language. And that's a thing called cadence. So you attribute to it a kind of rhythm of natural speech. So again, just to reiterate and to reread these lines, you try and read it naturally. So you would read, if it were done when it is done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and end-all here. Okay, so that's fairly natural. I mean, as natural as I'm capable of reading it. So let me show you how the poetry works. So if you take this first line here, what I've done is above the line I've put a slash where the syllables are emphasized. Okay, so let me read the line to you. And see if you can hear where the stresses are, right? You can see where they are, but see if you can hear them. You know, if you can hear that they land where I've marked them. If it were done when it is done, then 'twere well. If it were done when it is done, then 'twere well. Okay, now you don't read it like that, but if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well. Moving on to the next line. It were done quickly. If the assassination, notice how it has the word ass twice there? That's an unfortunate, but anyway, who said English isn't humorous? If it were done, it were done quickly. If the assassination, so you've got your 5 beats here, right? Could trammel up the consequence and catch. Could trammel up the consequence and catch. Right? So you try and put the beats where they naturally fall in English. If it were done when it was done, 'twere done well. If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well, it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and end-all here. So that's how iambic pentameter works. 5 beats per line, and the lines are arranged in such a way that they don't rhyme, or they rarely rhyme. Okay, so that's the way iambic pentameter works, and almost all the characters in Macbeth speak this way. There's in all of Shakespeare, there's only a couple of exceptions. Characters who are considered lower class characters, comedic characters, characters that are not members of the nobility, often don't speak in iambic pentameter. They'll just speak in normal paragraphs. So an example of this in Macbeth would be the porter. The porter doesn't speak in poetry because, well, for one thing, he's drunk, but for another thing, he's a hired servant. He's a lower class character. And so he's not given the kind of dignity that poetry would give a character. He speaks in normal, everyday paragraphs. The other exception often is if a character is not of sound mind. So if a character begins to lose his or her mind, is insane. Lady Macbeth will do this later in Act 5 in the famous sleepwalking scene. Sometimes Shakespeare will write the ravings of madmen and lunatics in paragraphs rather than in poetry. He's using language to undermine their sort of confused mental state. But by and large, people in Shakespearean drama speak in iambic pentameter. 5-beat lines that are unrhymed, and it's called blank verse. And this is an example of it. Okay, I'm going to get to my original prose translation, so my original paragraph translation of this, but first I'm going to make another video that talks about how to go through this passage here and deconstruct it. Okay, so I'll come back with another video on that one. Hope this helps.